Now, I've touched on the smaller character count of LEGO Pirates of the Caribbean compared to other recent LEGO games that I've covered with a measly 80 characters. TT Games really did stretch to fill up the roster. I mean, Ancient Sailor, Captain Bellamy, who are these people? But despite their best efforts to stretch out the roster, there are some shocking absences of a few characters. Now, I didn't take note of every possible character that was in the movies that didn't get a spot in this game, but here are the prime examples that I could think of off the top of my head. First of all, and probably the biggest sin, was the fact that Jack Sparrow's father is not in this game.
I call on Captain Teague, keeper of the code.
Not only was he, the big pirate boss man in At World's End, but he also makes a brief appearance in On Stranger Tides, in London of all places. So where is he in this game? And don't say it's because he didn't show up in the actual campaign. We got Captain Bellamy, may I remind you. Another missed opportunity is the inclusion of the Davy Jones locker jacks. And what I mean by that is in the Davy Jones locker level, you play as 4 jacks. One is the regular one, but the other 3 have a unique ability. Instead of their compass, one of them has a shovel, one of them has a pistol, and one of them has a bomb, which are 3 different abilities in this game. But those additional jacks aren't in the actual roster, which I feel like they should be, because you played them in a level. What are we doing here, guys? Jack Sparrow's father and some additional Jack Sparrows would not have hurt this roster at all. And to add to that list, I feel like adding a cursed Barbossa in his skeleton form would have been a good way to give Barbossa that mystery ability that I hinted on that I still can't talk about. He would have that, skeleton version of him as the design. Maybe TT Games wanted an even square of character icons and they opted to leave those guys out. But I would rather them add the ones that I've mentioned into the game and take out a few of the customizable characters. Why are there so many? No one uses them anyway. So Mr. Mercer is basically just a bad dude. No real depth to this guy. Not that I was really itching to know Mr. Ian Mercer's sob story background. He's the right-hand man of the short guy, mostly carrying out the dirty work by killing whoever the short man wants. Every time I think of Mr. Mercer, which isn't a lot, like not an exorbitant amount, but on the off chance that I do think of this guy, on the off chance he does cross my mind, I imagine him shooting someone. That was what it came down to fulfill Beckett's needs. Oh, I'm sorry, short guy. He needs to shoot someone or something somewhere, and somehow there will be a gunshot heard, and it will be by Mr. Mercer, and the victim will be the one with the bullet hole in them, and they will probably be dead. Can you tell I'm trying to stretch out this segment for as long as I can? Oh, and speaking of shooting, I probably should have mentioned this. Mr. Mercer has the ranged ability because of the gun that he uses to shoot people, and I'd expect nothing less from this bad, bad man. Now, you remember when I talked about Norrington and that he had his own level called Norrington's Choice? Well, since LEGO games must always be co-op and Norrington can't be alone in a level, the developers teamed him up with the comedic relief redcoat doofuses, Murtog being one of them. Murtog is one of a duo, and the second half is coming up next, so I'll save the talk of them being a duo to when I can legally say the next guy's name. Murtog is like the dumber one of the two, and honestly, I just like the other guy better, so that's why Murtog is lower. However, the one ability Murtog has is of course the theme of the first half of this part, ranged and only ranged. Murtog carries a musket, which has a shockingly higher firing rate compared to a historically accurate musket, but hey, this is a LEGO game, and the franchise is frickin' Pirates of the Caribbean. Historical accuracy was thrown out the window almost immediately. As I've said in the last segment, Mulroy is the second half of the Redcoat duo, who is also a playable character in the Norrington's Choice level. Mulroy and Murtog are no different in the abilities with the single musket, and almost no difference in appearance either. Hell, even their names are stupidly similar. They're just the red-coated comedic relief. Enough said. What's funny though, aside from their antics, which wasn't really even that funny, is that even though they swore allegiance to the king, they actually switched sides at the end of At World's End by becoming crewmates of the Black Pearl. They had a pretty big role in Dead Men Tell No Tales as well. Well, not really, but it's more than you would expect. Though they were pretty annoying in the fifth movie especially, despite the fact that they were done a lot better in earlier movies. Their shtick is that they are so easily pulled into arguing with each other that protagonists get an opportunity to escape, steal, or what have you. But in the last movie, there was a whole scene dedicated to Mulroy fooling Murtog into telling him where his treasure is. That movie was over 2 hours long. They couldn't trim that scene out. Now, I just covered the Redcoat Doofus duo with Murtog and Mulroy. Now, here is one half of their pirate counterparts. Yeah, I know that I said that Murtog and Mulroy became pirates, but they kind of just replaced Pintle and his bestie, who I will name just because it's next to impossible to not with this guy, Righetti. Pintle and Righetti were just Murtog and Mulroy in pirate form, albeit way better. One of the funniest scenes of Dead Man's Chest, maybe the entire franchise, is Righetti explaining to Pintle the motives of Sparrow, Turner, and Norrington in their fight for the chest. Really, Pintle and Righetti are the perfect duo to play seemingly a minor role, but just important enough to be interacting with the main characters. Murtog and Mulroy could never achieve that feat. But Pintle here shares the same fate as Barbossa in this game, where he did have the Aztec curse, but was revoked of that special ability I won't name yet, because he shows up afterwards. You actually get to play as Pintle in the level titled A Touch of Destiny. However, Pintle does retain his ranged ability with his pistol. Now, we went over the Hungry Cannibal. Here is the Angry Cannibal. Put them together, you get the Hangry Cannibal. I'm just Josh. I'm a little peeved that they needed to include two cannibals that barely differ at all aside from their weapon of choice, and not include some of the characters I've mentioned, like Teague or the Davy Jones Lockerjacks. But both cannibals made the cut, and we just have to deal with it. Angry Cannibal only has the ranged ability, similar to the Hungry Cannibal, but he doesn't have the stupid lame spear. He has a blow dart. I don't think there's any kind of advantage of a blow dart over a pistol in this game, but the blow dart just feels like it's packing more of a punch. Let me reiterate. There is most likely no plus to having a blow dart in this game over a pistol, but I feel like there is, so just let me have this, okay? Also, the Angry Cannibal is the only character to even have a blow dart, and it was probably to differentiate him from the Hungry Cannibal and his spear, but it's still cool. If you've never played this game and you're along just for the ride, this guy probably has no significance to you. But this guy is Mr. Brown and gets the honor of being one of two characters you play in the very first level of this game, in the very first area. That's right, you play Mr. Brown before you play Jack Sparrow. In fact, you're actually fighting Jack Sparrow before you get to actually play as him. But Mr. Brown was the drunken owner of a smithy, and Will Turner was his apprentice. Mr. Brown was really just in the right place at the right time to be the first character you get to play. This game was adapting the initial sword fight between Jack Sparrow and Will Turner in the smithy in the first film. And the LEGO games, you know, they need co-op, so Mr. Brown was the lucky guy to accompany Will Turner. Mr. Brown's only ability is completely understandable, seeing that he is the owner of a smithy and is also a new ability to this series. Mr. Brown wields a hammer and has the forge ability. Basically, if you see machinery pulsing red, those with forge can fix it to make stuff happen. However, we only ever see Mr. Brown drunk off his rocker, so I'm not sure if we can trust him with a hammer. At least it's not a sword, though. Now, I spent a little bit of time on the Queen Anne's Revenge level a while ago when talking about the Cook and Scrum, since they were key players in the going-ons of the level. Well, Solomon here was also a component as the Forger. Solomon was the guy you needed the cooked egg for, and was also behind bars. Now, I don't know exactly why Solomon was behind bars and no one else was, but we should be raising eyebrows for that. Why was he the only guy? While everyone else was chilling below deck, on their hammocks. This guy was trapped behind bars. Is he a criminal? Should we be releasing him? Are we sure we want to do that? Is there literally anyone besides the one singular guy behind bars that could forge something? Apparently not. And the wiki said that this guy is a cold-blooded killer in his introductory paragraph, so his case is not really being helped. His only ability is Forge, though, and I ranked him over Mr. Brown because, honestly, between a killer and a drunk, I would trust the forging of the murderer any day. Come on. Like, that guy's under the influence. He can't forge. I don't know. Based on what we see of Mr. Brown in the first film, you already know Will Turner was behind any sword that was coming out of that smithy. So, Mr. Brown is lucky to have the forge ability at all. Of course, I leave the position of the best Forge-only character to Mr. Gibbs, probably the most loyal character to Jack Sparrow in the entire series. Seriously, it's shocking how much faith Gibbs has in Sparrow. I mean, Gibbs almost took the brunt of Sparrow's crimes by impersonating him in London. And as I've mentioned, Gibbs has the Forge ability and nothing else. Gibbs never really displayed any forging in the films, at least not that I remember. But I think the developers wanted the crewmates of Jack Sparrow to have, something special, especially in the Tortuga level. They may have dropped the ball on Cotton, but all the other crewmates you recruit in that level have at least something. Gibbs was, like I said, one of the recruits in the Tortuga level, and this game has a puzzle that recreates how Jack wakes him up with a cauldron of water while he sleeps with pigs. In the end, I just think Gibbs is somewhat of an unsung hero in these films, and he gets points for that. So I think this was the guy that was supposed to replace Will Turner. Well, not really, but he played the role of white dude who isn't used to the pirate life but is taken under the wing of Jack Sparrow, I guess. But instead of being the son of a pirate, Philip here is a missionary. He spreads the word of God and also has an uncomfortable to watch romance with a mermaid. Really weird. However, Philip actually has a semi-useful ability that is exclusive to him and one other character. The ability is called Screech. Well, kind of. The other character that has this ability, and also the reason why this ability is in this game at all, she screeches. Philip sings, but it does the same thing. So I'm hesitant to call it Screech since it's not screeching, it's singing. But I mean, I guess it does start to sound like screeching once you hear it for long enough. Seriously, why is it the same vocalization over and over? It gets old at a light speed pace, but whether it's screeching or just, average singing, it still shatters glass. That's right, glass breaking is in this game, and only 2 characters can do it. Philip is one, but the other character does so much more. So, Philip, please take your leave. We do not need you in this game. Now, you remember Barbossa and Pintle, and how I said they're missing an ability that those with an Aztec curse have because they showed up after the first film in this game? Well, now I can finally reveal that ability. One of the iconic scenes in the franchise is the skeleton crew of the Black Pearl marching underwater. Well, that's it. That's the ability, the underwater walk. Characters without the ability must dive if they want to go underwater, and even then, they can only dive for so long until they run out of breath. That is, unless they have the extra. But underwater walkers immediately sink to the bottom of the water, where a lot of minikits and extra studs are located. Grapple here was a crew member of the Black Pearl and was inflicted with the Aztec curse. However, he never shows up again after the first film, so he gets to keep his underwater walk. It's a shame that being represented more in this game equates to a reduction in the amount of abilities a character can have, but that's what Barbossa and Pintle are dealing with. As for Grapple, though, he's named that because he wields a grapple. Crazy, isn't it? I feel like they really missed an opportunity with an ability for this guy, but that ability won't come up until the final 10. But, okay, I'll just say it, okay? There's a thing that Jack Sparrow does that only Jack Sparrow can do that I think someone with a grapple, like a guy named Grapple, could definitely also do. I'm just saying. And wouldn't you know it, here we have the final. No, what the frick? Here we have the female lead of the first 3 films. She who would eventually become Pirate King, but instead go back to Port Royal and not even say a single word ever again. Anyone else think it was weird how Elizabeth said literally nothing in the 5th movie at the end? She just runs over to the top of the hill and makes out with Orlando Bloom. Like, at least say something, dude. Like, come on. I get it. You're getting a paycheck to make out with someone. Like, but come on, dude. But this was the Elizabeth Swann variant that you played on the Smuggler's Den level. At this point, Elizabeth and Jack Sparrow had been stranded on this island by Barbossa, but it was the same one that Sparrow had escaped before. Elizabeth Swann, in this form, only has one ability. It's a new one for the series, but we've seen it before in past LEGO games. It's High Jump, an ability given to every female character where they just jump higher. And the game tells you that you should use it by displaying flowers on the ground. The Undergarments Elizabeth is the lowest of the Elizabeth variants because this was her at her low point in the first film. Only fitting that it be her low point in this list as well. I don't care if no one cares. I'm doing it anyway. Show me the tallies. Pretty close, but that last Elizabeth segment made it so Curse of the Black Pearl wins this part alone instead of tying with At World's End. That also conveniently ties up all the films in the running.